How do you rewrite the rules of a whole genre? Well, today we're talking about Outkast. We're talking about two high school kids from Atlanta who didn't just join the hip-hop conversation. They blew it wide open. They changed the sound, they changed the map. So yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, I want you to just think about a number for a second. 13 million. That's a huge number, right? Well, that's how many times the best-selling rap album in history has gone platinum. And yep, you guessed it, that record belongs to Outkast. It's just mind-blowing, and it really shows you the scale of what they accomplished.
So, you gotta ask, right? How did a couple of teenagers from Atlanta, a city that, let's be honest, was completely slept on in the rap world, how did they become undisputed kings? Their story, it's so much more than just music. It's really a masterclass in having a vision, standing your ground, and just being completely 100% yourself.
So to really get how they got to the top, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. And it didn't start in some fancy recording studio. Nope, it started somewhere you'd probably never guess. Picture this. It's 1992, Atlanta's Lenox Square Mall. This is where it all went down. A couple of 16-year-old kids, Antoine Patton and Andre Benjamin, meet for the first time. I mean, they were just high schoolers who knew each other from rap battles in the cafeteria, you know? But that one meeting, man, that was the spark that lit the fuse for one of the greatest partnerships in music history. It's crazy. Right from the jump, the magic of Outkast was this incredible duality. They were like two sides of the same coin, a perfect yin and yang. On one side, you had Big Boi, the player. His lyrics were just so grounded, painting these vivid pictures of Southern life, you know, pimps and gangsters. And on the other side, André 3000, the poet. He was always pushing the envelope, getting into these way more unorthodox, politically charged themes. And here's the key, that difference wasn't a problem. It was their secret weapon, their superpower.
And get this, success didn't take long, like at all. They officially become Outkast, they link up with the legendary Dungeon Family Collective, and boom, their very first single, Players Ball, shoots straight to #1 on the Billboard rap charts. I mean, right out of the gate, everybody knew these guys were something else.
Okay, so breaking out of Atlanta, that's one thing. But getting respect from the rest of the hip-hop world, yeah, that was a whole different war.
You really have to put yourself back in the mid-90s. Hip-hop was basically a two-party system. You had the East Coast, repped by New York, and you had the West Coast, with that LA G-Funk sound. It was this intense rivalry. And the South? Phew! To most people, it just wasn't even on the map. Southern rap was kind of seen as a joke, not something to be taken seriously.
And that brings us to this one. Absolutely critical moment. The year is 1995. Outkast goes up to New York for the Source Awards. This was the biggest night in hip-hop. And when they get on stage to accept the award for Best New Rap Group, the crowd, this New York crowd, just starts booing them, loudly. I mean, can you imagine? Just a huge wave of disrespect on national television.
But here's what happened. Instead of wilting, instead of backing down, a clearly frustrated Andre 3000 walks up to that mic, and he drops one of the most iconic lines in the history of music. He just says, "But it's like this, the South got something to say, that's all I gotta say." And man, that wasn't just a clapback, that was a declaration of war. That was the thesis for their entire career, right there.
So you drop a line like that on the biggest stage in hip-hop. How do you back it up? Well, Outkast didn't just talk. They went back home to Atlanta, and they got to work. They started pushing their music into places nobody had ever been before.
What happens next is just this unbelievable creative explosion. Think about it. In just 4 years, they released 3 albums that are now considered stone-cold classics. And each one wasn't just a follow-up. It was a complete reinvention of what Southern hip-hop could even sound like. Every single album was a giant leap into the future.
I mean, their evolution was just breathtaking. They threw out those old player characters and became these futuristic, almost alien-like figures. And the music? They started pulling in sounds from everywhere. We're talking funk, psychedelia, jazz, even techno. Stuff that was just not in the mainstream hip-hop playbook. The production got all spacey and experimental, and with every record, they were cementing their place as the leaders of a whole new sound.
And nothing, I mean nothing, says more about their partnership than the title of that third album, Aquamany. It's literally a mashup of their zodiac signs. You got Big Boi, the Aquarius, and Andre, the Gemini. It was the perfect name, wasn't it? It symbolized their whole vibe, these two totally different energies coming together to make something brand new and just incredibly powerful.
All right, so after years of getting love from the critics and building this hardcore fan base, Outkast was on the verge of doing the impossible.
They were about to take their unique, weird, wonderful, funky Southern sound and use it to take over the entire world.
And then, in the year 2000, the dam just burst. They dropped the album Stankonia, and on it is a song called Miss Jackson. Now, this was a super personal track, right? It was about André's real-life relationship with Erykah Badu's mom. It was raw, it was honest, and it was unbelievably catchy. Not your typical pop hit, but that story of complicated love just connected with everyone, and it became their very first #1 hit on the main Billboard chart.
And just when you thought they'd peaked, they dropped their masterpiece, their absolute magnum opus. In 2003, we get Speakerboxxx / The Love Below, and this thing was a beast. A huge double album, but it was really 2 solo albums just packaged together. On one side, you had Big Boi's Speakerboxxx, which was pure, uncut Southern funk and rap. Classic Big Boi. And on the other, you had André's The Love Below, which was just this wild, crazy, brilliant trip through jazz and rock and pop.
And the result? Absolute total world domination. Big Boi's single The Way You Move hits #1. Awesome. But then André's song, Hey Ya, becomes this global monster. It just takes over everything. It stayed at #1 for 9 weeks. For 10 straight weeks, if you turned on the radio, the #1 song in America was an Outkast song. Just unbelievable.
And at that point, what could the music industry do? They had to bow down. In 2004, Speakerboxxx The Love Below wins the Grammy for Album of the Year. We're talking the biggest award in music, period. It was this massive, monumental win, not just for Outkast. It was a win for hip-hop. It was a win for the South.
You know, that Grammy win wasn't just them reaching the peak of the mountain. It was their coronation. It sealed their legacy, a legacy that's still so powerful today, long after they went their separate ways. They proved that André's words all those years ago were an understatement. The South didn't just have something to say. It had something to teach the whole world.
And that brings us right back to where we started. That number, 13 million. 13 million times platinum is now certified Speakerboxxx The Love Below. It is, officially, the highest certified, the best-selling hip-hop album ever. What more validation do you need for a vision that was so completely their own?
So when you boil it all down, what's their legacy? Well, they're the ones who put Southern hip-hop on the world stage. They're the ones who proved a rap album could be anything it wanted to be, smashing genre boundaries without a second thought. And on top of all that, they celebrated smart, complex lyrics and positive ideas. There's really no debate. They're one of the greatest hip-hop acts of all time. Full stop.
And that kind of leaves us with this one last thing to think about. The whole story of Outkast is really about a perfect paradox, isn't it? The player and the poet. The grounded, street-smart hustler and the eccentric, head-in-the-clouds artist. It really makes you wonder, what kind of incredible things can happen when 2 total opposites don't just tolerate each other, but they fuse together to create something perfect?